You're listening to Making a Living Show. I'm Roby Levy.
Hi, I'm Robin Collins. I'm an actor, director, producer, brand manager, and editor, and other things that I am no longer allowed to do during this pandemic. Now, all I make is tears in a curled up ball position. Enjoy the show. I'm making a living.
Who are you and what do you make for a living?
I'm not willing to give the number of dollars that I make for a living. That's a rude question. No. My name is Robin Collins, and I tell stories for a living. I am a slashy in the truest sense of the word. I am an actor, director, producer, editor, brand manager, and babysitter sometimes.
That's a budding babysitting career.
Yeah. Well, I babysit artists every once in a while.
Right. Yeah. They need help.
I don't know if you and your audience are aware of this, but sometimes artists can be neurotic.
No.
Yes. This is a hard truth.
And they come to you. They get left on your doorstep.
Often.
Cold and hungry, shivering.
Yeah.
With just a soother. And did they leave a note?
It's just a handprint in blood.
And you take them in, you nurse them back to health, some semblance thereof.
I do what I can. But yeah, no, I began acting as a young man. Wow, I was 12 and did my first television series at the CBC in Vancouver. And that sort of informed my trajectory. I knew I just wanted to tell stories for a living. It became clear to me after teenage happened that every young actor, every child actor grew up to be a terrible actor. So around university time, I got out of the business entirely and did something completely different in order to have a life, an experience that could give me something to draw upon that wasn't just growing up with craft service tables and things like that. And then when I had gotten through that, I got back into the world and the entertainment world and moved to Los Angeles to fight with all the other piranhas here.
When you were in Vancouver and you were not working in entertainment, were you still acting? Were you still working on things?
I avoided it. I ran the largest halfway house in the world. We had a 40-bed contract with correction services for the worst of the worst. So they were the drug addicted or alcohol addicted, substance addicted, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, etc., that were in federal prison for naughty things. And I was the person who decided whether they could come out and start trying to play with the other humans. And it was very fulfilling. I loved working with the clients. I hated working with the government. The red tape was the thing I wanted to hang myself with. And unusually, in my 5-year span, with over 500 murders, only 3 people attempted to murder me, which I'm told is very low.
That's good numbers.
Yeah, which means that murderers like me. So that's dubiously good. I don't know if that's...
Since then, how many directors have wanted to murder you?
Oh, I hope all.
I can account for a few.
So I went from coddling murderers to something way more dangerous, living in Hollywood.
So what did bring you to Hollywood then? Like you were making a difference in the world and you said, nah, enough of that. I've had it. I'm going to go and make no difference in the world. I'm going to be an actor in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. It was a combination of 2 things. Number one, it was the last murder attempt. The first 2 murder attempts were a knife and a broken bottle. And the last one, which I was fine. I was young. I can fend for myself, and they're usually not terribly, they're drunk or high, so it's easy to deal with. The third murder attempt was a man with his syringe, and he was HIV positive. And I was able to avoid the syringe, but my brain went, yeah, but he doesn't even have to kill me. If he gets that in me, I'm in big, big trouble. So I was like, okay, enough is enough. And I'd come to miss telling stories. And I knew there was a change needed. I was yearning for creative output. So I just picked up and moved.
So there wasn't a job that pulled you down to Hollywood. It was just, I want to get back into this. I want to give it a whirl.
Yeah. I had gotten my bachelor's, one in psychology and one in fine arts with an acting major. And I knew that I wasn't going to work in a cubicle for the rest of my life. When I landed in Los Angeles, and it's something that has informed me to this day, I said out loud, I said, from now on, you will never do anything that is not creative. So you're not going to wait tables. You're not going to become a real estate agent. You're not going to do anything if it isn't creative. And you will be homeless before you do any of that. I was very stern with myself. And, by no means am I rich and famous, but I have had the joy of being here for 11 years and literally only being creative and paying the bills and having great experiences. And so that was one of my first rules, and it remains a rule.
So give me a sense of what are some of these creative things? What was your first gig when you got to LA?
I began editing for rap videos, basically Tupac's family. The director of, I believe, Gin and Juice, what other ones? Anyway, his name is Gobi Rahimi, and he was one of Tupac's very close friends, was there the night that he died. And I met with him, and he liked the way I edited and hired me to get involved in the rap game. So I worked with Bubba Sparks and a lot of Tupac's cousins, they would call. I didn't know whether they were really cousins.
You missed air quotes, everybody. There was a lot of air quotes just now.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, you never really know whether, are you biological cousins or are you just a cuz? I don't know. And that lasted about a year and a half before I got out of it, because I was at a studio with, I went to Snoop Dogg's private birthday party. I was the only Caucasian member. And Snoop had to yell at the crowd, "Don't worry, this is my white boy," in order to keep me safe, which I was very happy about.
That's very kind of him.
It was very kind, because everyone looked at me sideways. And everyone has a gun. Like, that's how it is.
America.
Englewood. That's Englewood, man. Everyone's got a gun in their pants. And I'm a small town Canadian kid from Victoria, British Columbia. I'm like, oh, terrifying. And one of his cousins was doing an album, and I was filming and editing the behind the scenes of the recording of the album at a recording studio in Santa Monica. No, it was on Santa Monica in Hollywood, Santa Monica and Highland. And when you're a young rapper that's trying to leave Inglewood or Long Beach or wherever you are, there's a point where, quote, you start to fuck with white people, which means that you've reached a point where it's a horrible, horrible truth, but that's what they say to each other. Like, how's your career going? Oh, I'm starting to fuck with white people. Oh, that's interesting. It's a level of some kind. It's horrible. And so I was the fish that they would throw. I was the first white person that they would throw at these gang members, effectively. And Kitchen Crips, woo, K's up, riders. And a cuz of his wasn't invited to the recording session. Found out that there was a recording session with me, and bust in with, no joke, it's so cliche, an open bottle of Hennessy, no shirt, and a gun in his pants.
Come
And
on.
obviously he was angry that he wasn't invited. And then the artist was angry that he was, screwing with my paper. And they got into a physical fight. The guns came out. No one fired anything. And the only way that if things were going to be cool, is that if I took a swig of the Hennessy that he brought, then everything was going to be cool, which I did not want to do, and I did immediately. And then I excused myself to go to the bathroom and got out of the rap game. And then it was into comedy after that.
Far more dangerous.
Far more. And that's when I started dabbling with you.
That's true. You and I have crossed paths.
Yes. We've crossed streams.
We called that a crossfire when my brother and I were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you got out of the rap game. You got into the comedy game. What were you doing in comedy? Were you acting?
Yeah. A friend of mine, funnily enough, from Victoria, her name was Hallie Bird. I went to high school with her, and she is a very talented woman and was a talent agent in Vancouver herself for quite some time. She knew a talent agent here called Daniel Hoff through family connections. In Hollywood, not unlike any other situation, it is really who you know. It is, nepotism is alive and well. And so she said, this guy, Robin, I've seen what he can do on the stage, and you should have him. And Daniel Hoff, who is amazing, he's an amazing advocate for me and has gotten my back for a decade now. He's an incredible agent. And I became arguably the highest paid commercial actor in Los Angeles, which is kind of like being the principal of a homeschool, but it's something. It's something. I mean,
so what did that mean? Did that mean you were doing a lot of commercials, or are you doing high profile commercials, everything in between?
Both. I was doing national commercials for beer and cars and little stuff too.
Those are good companies, beer
absolutely,
and cars.
Absolutely.
Were there specific beer companies you did a bunch of stuff for, or specific car companies?
Yeah, well, Super Bowl commercials are probably the gold of commercial work, and so I did one for Bud Light, and Toyota had me back a ton of times.
What do you think was it that they wanted you back?
Well,
they make a lot of stuff, these companies. So
absolutely,
what is it that you think drew them to you time and again?
The easy answer is fear. A lot of the commercial industry, and really all the entertainment industry, is fear-based decisions, because it's not like a farm where you have a crop, you know how much the crop's going to be, you know how much the price of the crop's going to be. It's creative people mingling with marketing people. So people with business degrees dealing with neurotic creative people. And so a lot of, this is a weird, I don't know, it's a humble brag, some sort of brag. But
stop being Canadian.
Right. Yeah. It's very,
it's enough already. You've been there for 10, 12 years. Come on.
I should
start bragging.
I should like the Kings by now, not the Canucks.
No one likes the Kings. Come on.
Agreed. So I've been asked to teach acting to people in LA many, many times. And I've shied away from it because I don't like the idea of getting comfortable teaching, even though it's lucrative here. I could be teaching.
And technically creative. So why wouldn't you?
Well, you're not wrong. I guess you're finding the chinks in my hypocritical armor. But I've avoided it. But now, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what I'm going to do.
I just want to enroll in the Robin Collins School of acting tricks.
Yes. Well, but I've done some private stuff. Like, an actor comes to me, especially a young actor who's never done it before, and asks, what's the secret? What do you do? What are your tips? And I ask them invariably, what's your first job on set? What's your first job? And invariably, they say something like, the craft, or being present, or listening, or things like that. And those are all very important things. But business-wise, my first job, every actor's first job needs to be get everyone home early. You want to get rehired? Get everyone home early, your first job. That's all. And you will watch every gaffer, every lighting tech, every assistant director.
Yeah, they'll love you.
Especially. Every assistant director will see an actor whose first job is to get people home early, and they'll be like, I'm having him back. Everyone.
Okay, so how does somebody do that then?
Well, the first thing that I think you do is focus on everyone else's jobs. So if there's somebody doing continuity and you see something that's a bit off, you privately say to that person in continuity, like, I noticed this. It's up to you. So that guy looks good now, or that girl looks good now. They go, yeah, no, wait, stop. The cigarette's not the right length, and then they look like they did a good job. If you've crossed the line of the axis line and you say to the DOP, just, are we crossing the line right now? Is that the plan? And he'll go, oh man, yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, we've crossed the line. We can't do this anymore. And they look good. That's one of my first things. But most actors tend to be neurotic piles of, it's all about me. It's all about me. And what's my line? What's my emotion? What's my motivation? I'm never talking to a director about my motivation. I'm talking to him like, what do you need from me, baby?
A lot of people don't have your ability to know about the filmmaking side of things. I mean, you would know about crossing the line. You would know about continuity, and you're cognizant of these kinds of things. I think most actors are just thinking about, holy shit, my line, holy crap, my moment. I got to find my mark.
Yeah.
They probably don't have the ability to even think beyond themselves. So is the first thing, I mean, are you just confident in your abilities as an actor that you can think beyond that stuff? You show up prepared, you show up knowing your way through this?
That's an excellent question. It depends on the project, I would argue. I'm lucky in that a lot of my commercial work, I've done feature-length stuff and character stuff, but a lot of the money that I've made is in commercials. So I'm lucky that they're short form. And so I don't have to learn a ton of lines all the time. But often I will show up unprepared to a certain degree because I don't like the idea of setting my mind to a certain way of doing it before arriving on set. So a lot of the time I will arrive on set without a firm direction, and commercial sets are the one place where I will take a line reading. If I'm on a movie set or if I'm on a stage, you can take your line reading and walk into the ocean. But on a commercial set, I grasp it.
It's a really specific place, a commercial set.
It is. And so the first thing I do is to talk to the director immediately. I just say some stuff to me where I understand the aesthetic and I will execute it to the best of my ability. And when I screw it up, just let me know. I also think it's really important, especially on a commercial set, if we've done something and there's playback at Video Village, I will go and watch it with the director. I will walk and I won't listen to anyone else. That's the first thing I'll do is like, oh, we're doing playback. I want to see playback.
Yeah, a lot of actors won't do that. A lot of actors will kind of just go into their own heads and go, I wonder how I did. And start getting, as you're saying, neurotic, or for that matter, congratulating themselves on doing such an awesome job, even though it may or may not be working for camera.
The key to commercial acting is something that I call near parody performance. That's what you have to do. Basically, you have to act in a way where the audience, the person that's watching you on television, knows that you're in on the fact that you're in a commercial, but you aren't overly...
You're not wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, like the bite and smile is what we talk about. Like, this is a McDonald's burger. I love it, right? And there's a lot of actors in commercials really try to like sell it, like really go like, this is so good. Like they really go overboard. And then there's some people like, this is a great burger. And you got to find that middle way of being like, don't worry, I know we're selling you a burger and I'm acting, but it is a really good burger. You should have it. It's that relationship that you have to foster, that near parody. It's not a parody, but it's close to a parody. And audiences love it.
Erring on the acting side of parody.
Yeah. It's that's what audience appreciate when they feel like they're being spoken to about arguably a good product. Although here's a secret. I will tell you and don't tell my agent if he ever hears this.
Don't worry, no one will hear this show.
There are very few companies I won't work for. One is cigarettes, and the other is McDonald's. And I've had the opportunity several times to audition for McDonald's, and I have deliberately tanked it every time. And if my agent found out, he would be furious. I was in the running, me and another guy, in the running for the live action Hamburglar.
That's not a thing.
Oh, why don't you Bing it? Google that little gem. His career went sideways after that.
Oh, there'll be a link in the show notes, folks.
Yeah, live action Hamburglar. It was horrible. So I have a question for you, if that's all right.
Sure, by all means.
You, in fact, not to tell tales out of school, have seen me on set work. You've been a producer for many things that I've actually really, really enjoyed, and not commercials, some long form comedy.
Yeah, actually, I was going to get into that, actually, because we did a web series. We did a couple of shorts.
You've seen me act,
yes.
And you've seen me edit the things that I act.
That's true. You are so multi-talented. I think you taught me some of my editing as well.
That's very cool. So what am I like on set from an outsider's point of view?
Well, even regardless of set, it's actually before set. I remember when we were getting into casting for 4 Pounds. So this is a short film that my brother Josh Levy directed. It was written by and starring Scott Thompson of Kids in the Hall of Fame. And there was this character Sparrow, and it was supposed to be Scott's sort of protege and
manservant,
exactly. So Scott said, just so you know, my friend Robin is going to play Sparrow. I remember I think we had looked at a couple other people. We were brainstorming. Josh and I were trying to figure out who was going to be Sparrow. And then you got to town. We met you. We sat down for 5 minutes. You delivered one line. Josh and I got up. We went into the other room and we said, this guy's in. It was one line. I remember, and I just looked, I said, holy crap.
Oh, shucks.
You just slipped right into character. It was a character we weren't expecting. It was a way of going about it we weren't expecting. And it was clear that there was some depth to it. It was odd. We could feel the backstory, even though we didn't know the backstory, if that made any sense.
Well, I was taught, and I remain focused when I work on playing motivations and not qualities. I find that a lot of actors, especially on commercial sets, play qualities. They play the quality of happy, the quality of angry, the quality of scared, instead of figuring out, and I mean, this is very cliche stuff, obviously, but motivation wise, like, well, what do I want? You know, what am I trying to do? I've been in the business since, like I say, I was 12. And I think it comes from me observing at a very young age, the people on a set get angry, directors and writers, and I watch them get angry, and then production stops. And then that makes everyone more angry. It makes the other actors angry. And I knew early on that was the last thing that was going to help anyone. Right. And so my motivation a lot of the time is to make this mesh, make it work, be the glue. And like I say, my second priority is acting good. And I think that's why I have had a sustained career, is because I don't put, in my mind, the cart before the horse.
You're pretty hard on yourself. You got to town and you decided you were not going to do anything that wasn't creative. Do you ever second guess that? Regardless of just like literally needing money, but like, do you ever sit there and go, oh my God, I've made wrong decisions here. I'm doubting my talent. I'm doubting my ability. I'm not getting the calls. I'm not finding the things that are really creatively inspiring me. Have I made some sort of mistake?
That That's a tough question to answer, not because I don't know, but because there's a lot of pride wrapped around it. It feels shameful to admit this, but I feel like I would be a coward if I didn't admit it. I have had two panic attacks here in my time in LA. One was when I first got here. I was living with a friend in Beverly Hills, David Schumann, God bless him, and he was with his wife. It was a small place, and it had become a situation where I wasn't really very welcome anymore because it's really hard to get started in this town. And they were not, they were whatever. He was on the master cleanse. It just was a stressful situation. And one day, they had a sort of jacuzzi tub, and I was just terrified. And I was in the tub, you know, physically and metaphorically naked. And I just bust. I was like, I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. And there's nothing so that I've never been so panicked and so fearful. And it was, 25 minutes, half an hour, but it's a feeling I've never felt before. It was the first time it had ever happened. And happily, right after that, I started editing for rap, hip hop, and stuff like that. So things got on board. But yeah, I didn't second guess my move, but what I was doing is it felt like it was hopeless.
Real fear.
Yeah, proper fear. And when we were growing as a species, as primates, there were reasons to be scared. Bears are coming to get you, or snakes, or whatever it is. So you had an object to fear. But this is that amorphous, like I can't even point my fear anywhere. I'm just like scared. And it was horrible. It was panic, proper panic. You see how tears and you're grabbing, you're clutching your arms, and so yeah, that was it.
What'd you do to get around that? How did you respond to that?
Happily, I was home alone. They were gone, so I had time to sort of. I got out of the bath and sort of stared into the mirror, and I could see myself shaking. And I, dried myself off and just spent time breathing as best I could. I should have reached out to someone, honestly. I should have called someone, my mom or, someone. I should have really communicated, but my pride and male pride probably was in the way. And I just sat it out. And when my friend Dave came home, I didn't tell him, which I should have, because he's a kind man. And after sort of cocooning and hiding and rocking like a baby for a day or so, eventually calls started trickling in of like, well, can you come edit this short film, or can you come edit this rap video, or whatever it was. And I sort of climbed out of the dark place, and it was no fun. It was my first tangle with anxiety, I think, and depression, and it was no fun. And then I stayed pretty optimistic. There was a time after I got off tour with Scott where not as bad as the tub experience, but I definitely had maybe it was my midlife crisis. Well, I'm not really midlife yet, but anxiety, well, something, nervous breakdown, who knows? Where I had been away from the game with Scott, traveling all over the nation, all over Canada and the United States, doing our show. And I had said, like, before I started directing and tour managing and editing, producing this show, that I knew I was going to take a hit in Hollywood. I knew I was going to lose money. I knew I was going to lose time, but creatively I was behind it 100%. And I knew I'd regret. If I said no, I'd regret it.
And this is Scott's recent Buddy tour.
Yeah, but the Buddy Cole monologues, which we're still hopeful that Amazon will pick it up when everything starts. And like when I got back, even though I'd prepared myself, even though I had thought, yeah, you're going to take a hit, when I got home and the phone wasn't ringing and I wasn't getting any auditions, it hurt. It was like, oh gosh, what have I done? I've irreparably damaged my time in Hollywood. That all of the casting directors have forgotten me. I'm older now and I'm doomed. There was a really like a week of darkness, more maybe of darkness, and and then I got a call from a casting director that missed me and found out that I was back, and I went out for an audition for a national, for a major company, and I went and auditioned, panicked because I was like, maybe I don't have it anymore, maybe I've lost my stuff. And I did my best, and I got the role.
And now you're the spokesman for Depends.
Exactly. Geritol. Yeah, I got the gig. The wardrobe fitting was in Santa Monica, and I live in Burbank. So it's an hour-ish plus drive. And I called them the day of and said, hey, I'm coming to the wardrobe thing today at 1. This virus thing is a bit, are we still on? Are we still doing this? And they were like, yep, absolutely. Absolutely. We're doing it. Green light, all systems go. I go, all right, let's do it. Drove down there, hour and a bit, got up to the place, and a woman behind the window went, no, did the throat cut symbol and went, we're shut down. We're shut down. I was like, oh, yep. There's the panic back. Good. I've missed you. So that was another gut punch. 2020 has been just such a garbage fire for
everyone.
For everyone. And I know I'm relatively young, and if I got this thing, probably I'd be fine. But I have friends. My friend Robert is a 76-year-old gay fella who survived the AIDS Holocaust, the AIDS epidemic. If in any way I were to get him sick and if he died from this, the moral hangover would be, I couldn't take it.
Yeah, it's vital everyone take this seriously, of course.
Yeah.
Despite what it's, doing to each of us individually, career-wise and psyche-wise, of course.
Yeah. How is is what you're doing here, is that food for Roby?
What, this podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, like yourself, I've always been involved in creative endeavors. Funny enough, I mean, I know everybody started a podcast when COVID hit, but, for me, this has been something that's been in the works for a while because I grew up in an art household. And, a Saturday for us was to pile in the car and go drive into Toronto and go to 80 Spadina before it was the offices of Shopify and go see these galleries that was in this really interesting old building. And we would see sculpture and we would see painting and just fascinating things. And my dad would always wind up discussing things with the gallery owners and with the artists if they happen to be there. So part of that is this for me. I've always been interested in art beyond the stuff that I make. We all make this stuff and we're driven to make this stuff. There's something that spurs us all on to make this happen. And that's ultimately just what I was fascinated in exploring because I know why I do it. And I'm curious why other people do it and how they do it. And that's really where this came from. And that's why this has been sort of percolating for a while, even though it's actually just coming out now.
Well, I know you've because you are with child now. You have Spawn. Yeah, you have been, obviously distracted from a lot of the things that you normally do. But I'm curious because as one of your titles is producer, you have produced. Have there been any people clamoring like, "Hey, man, just so you know, I'm available." Have you had any of those kind of calls?
I do. I get emails all the time. I get calls all the time from folks that are, that are looking for an opportunity or looking for a partner on a script. I may not be actually able to do anything with it myself, but I might be able to connect that person. I mean, if there's an opportunity to help somebody out who's, showing some real talent and showing some real drive and gumption, then sure. Yeah, of course. At the same time, you can't just will something into being.
The takeaway from this, listeners at home, is that Roby is very interested in receiving all your script, pitch ideas.
Don't send me your stuff, please.
And pipe dreams. www.makingalivingshow.com. Just send them in. Flood him. He'll look at them all. He'll strongly consider any opportunity.
This interview is over. Back to something that isn't going to get edited out of the show. Tell me, what does a typical day look like for an actor / director / editor / shooter / everything that you do?
Well, happily or unhappily, there is no such thing as a typical day. Like I say, I wanted to avoid the cubicle life, working at a bank or lawyer, things like that. To quote a famous artist, every day I'm hustling. But yeah, I mean, I usually, I'm freelance everything, right? So the projects that I'm working on are many and varied. And my quip about babysitting is very real. A lot of the artists that I work with aren't good at anything other than the one thing that they're good at. And so I have to sort of do the rest and tell them, yes, this is the correct edit. And yes, they will like it. And no, we're not going to do that. And I don't mind selling Scott out, for example, when he was going to sort of advertise our show, his idea to advertise the show was for Buddy Cole to receive a letter on screen in the mail and open it, and white powder comes out of the piece of mail. And he opens the piece of mail, and it is like a ransom note where they cut out the letters, and it's a la Jussie Smollett's, hope you die, F word, the gay F word, not other F word. And he pitched this to me with a straight face. He was like, "This is what I want to do," and I had to just be like, "Yeah, we're not doing that." No.
How did you get him off that?
Well, I pitched him the other idea, which is the one that actually got made, which I directed, which is Buddy at a bar talking to a bartender who was played, thankfully, by the wonderful Dave Foley.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. And he's just talking about what his show's going to be about, all the horrible things that his show's going to be about. Homophobia, Islamophobia, all the horrible things. And the bartender goes, "Well, you got to be careful nowadays, because, nowadays." Buddy says, "What do you mean?" "Well, because I'm gay." And the bartender says, "No, because you're an old white guy. You can't talk about anything." And that's the gag. And I was able to sell him on that because it's A, funny, and B, I was like, we should put another kid in the hall in there too. And then he was like, "Yeah, you're right." But a lot of it is babysitting. A lot of it is like editing the raw emotional output of these wonderfully creative people. But they're the river and you're the hydroelectric dam, where you like slow it down in order to make energy. In order to create something, you have to be like, okay, whoa, let's turn some turbines here. Let's figure it out.
Well, that's the thing I always notice about working with Scott and the rest of the kids is the thing I always took away is the idea that they always opt for what's excellent. They're hard on the work. It doesn't matter where the good idea is coming from. If it's the good idea, that's the idea. You have to beat the hell out of it until in the last idea standing. That's the good one. That's one of those things that I really personally took away from my projects with Scott.
What advice would you give fellow budding producers.
Who is doing this interview, you or me here?
Well, I've produced far less than you, right? But I have had the occasion to produce something, and you would be the person I would ask for advice. And I was thinking, wow, what an opportunity, because I've never, in fact, hopefully I will be producing things more. What's a nugget of wisdom?
I would have to say one of the things that I really learned along the way is to, find a thoroughbred or two or three. Find these people who are just creative juggernauts. They have idea after idea after idea. They're dialed in, they're thinking, they're seeing different ways of coming at all of these different things that are going on in the world around us. Find these people, pair them up, put them together, and see what comes of it. When you have the opportunity to work with somebody who just creatively fascinates you, you can help steer them through and find that one excellent idea, the needle in the haystack. And if you can do that, then you know where you're going to put your money. Then you know where you're going to put your energy and effort, and you're going to make that idea come to life. That's ultimately really what producing is. It's not making calls to get gear. It's not making calls and doing contracts. It's not finding money and finding financiers and distribution. That's perfectly fine. That's part of it. But you're not going to want to do any of that stuff as a producer unless you have a project you absolutely love, working with creatives that can actually get it done for you and bring that idea to life. That's ultimately, you have to fall in love with the project.
It's good advice, folks. Good advice. Keep your ears open. Good advice over here. Just saying. I mean,
Getting back to me interviewing you as opposed to you interviewing me. I know every day is different, but how do you balance things? You've got work, you got to get paid, you got to be creative. You have a life outside of all of this stuff. How are you navigating that?
Poorly. Well, I've always said that 50% of my job is socializing. And a lot of actors and everyone in entertainment sort of forget that. A director or a producer or a casting director, when they're given a job to do, they will think about the person that they had a beer with last night. And if you're that person, they will think, oh, yeah, Robin was there. Yeah, well, yeah, big Robin. But if you haven't spoken to those people for a month, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know. Who? I don't know. I'm going to go through pictures. All right. Which has become very difficult because now we're not really socializing anymore. And the key to the sub level, the part B of that, is when you socialize as an person in an entertainment industry, it's so important not to make it a job, even though it is. It's your job to go out and socialize, but don't go out and be like, hey, I'm here to network. Just pick a person that you find interesting and then just chat with them, not about work, not about anything, just talk. Just because they're interesting. And you'll find that very quickly you build a community of like-minded people. There's two versions of success in Hollywood. And, one is the idea that you just step on everyone else's head to get to the top. And then there's the Adam Sandler version, which is, I just want to work with everyone I like. I want to work with my friends and things like that. I err on the side of Sandler. I enjoy his dramatic work far more than his comedic work because I believe he is an amazing dramatic actor.
He's had some good turns.
Oh my gosh. Gems and Punch Drunk are masterpieces. So, but I err on the side of, I just want to work with my friends. I want to bring everyone together. I don't want to be like, ha, I got what I wanted. I'm, screw you. I'm out of here. So the lack of socialization has been very, very difficult. But I've been trying to do the Zooms and stuff like that. It always feels like, though, when I'm socializing over the interwebs, it's like earmuffs, young children. It's like having sex with a condom on. It's almost it feels good, but it's like not quite there. It's like, this doesn't feel as close. Zoom is a social prophylactic. But yeah, day-to-day stuff has been difficult. I've been Well, here's something I've been doing to entertain me and keep creative. My friend Gary, he's been doing acting alone with friends who are acting alone. And so I've started reaching out to actor friends of mine, and we just started a text thread of like someone says something in character in a scene, you respond, no context, you figure out a scene, then you film yourself at your house doing your half, and they film themselves doing their half, and I'll cut it together, and we'll make a scene. It's not going to go anywhere. No one's going to care. But you feel engaged. You feel like you're still alive. You're still doing something.
Still flexing those muscles.
Yeah, because
with a text director, basically.
Yeah, it's like slow improv. But yeah, balancing, it's almost impossible.
You going to put any of these out?
I mean, only if I'm incentivized by a certain famous producer I know in Toronto.
I would very much like to see these. I may invest tens of dollars in it.
Well, you are a 10 cenaire.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to, of course, apply for funding from the Canadian government, but
Yeah. Oh, here's a delightful tidbit. The American government has obviously abandoned everyone living in America in general. They're sending $1,200 to human, which in Alabama, $1,200 that'll buy you a house. In California, that's a third of your rent. But out of nowhere, the Canadian government sent me money.
California.
Like, oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet.
We care.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So yeah, balancing it's tough. As far as making days work and days make sense. People, I don't even know what day it is. People have asked me like, it's Fleurs Day, the Glarteenth of Grenember. I don't know. So yeah. If I had any tips, I would say lock down your sleep routine. It's so easy to forget what time it is, or drink to freaking 4 a.m. and just be like, well, who cares? I'm not waking up for anything tomorrow. So yeah, sleep schedule, nourishment,
a little activity here and there,
sunshine. I've done arts and crafts.
Oh my God, what arts and crafts have you done?
Terrifying. Well, a dear friend of mine who has multiple children who she has to homeschool right now, which is madness. How dare you? She's a big Tim and Eric fan, and she's a big fan of the Beaver Boys, who love to drink white wine and eat shrimp. It's a hilarious. Link in the description. I purchased dollhouse-sized shrimp and dollhouse-sized white wine and a dollhouse-sized plate and a dollhouse-sized cutting board, and I'm gonna glue them all together, put them in a ring box, and drop it off for her because she's pulling her hair out.
These are not real shrimp.
No.
Please don't send her real shrimp. That's going to just smell terribly.
By the U.S. Postal Service. No ice. Good luck with that. So yeah, just try to be creative while you can. As far as money goes, like many of us are doomed. Canada will take care of you. America will not, depending on where you're listening to this podcast for. But many of us are doomed. Unfortunately, either COVID or unemployment will get us all. Hopefully you've been nice to your parents over your lifetime. Yeah, and hopefully you don't have a drug problem. Like, where are you going to find meth right now? That's got to be horrible. I've been worried about criminals because there's got to be some crimes that, like, if you're a home invader, you're screwed. Everyone's home. You're out of luck. Muggers, you can mug with a gun, but you can't mug with a knife. That you can't get that close. I'll cough on you. Get away. They're doomed. Poor criminals.
Poor criminals.
Scammers, though. Oh, internet scammers.
The world's their oyster.
Oh, they're killing it.
Well, speaking of the internet, where can people find you?
I avoid the internet like the plague. So I would like to tell everyone out there who enjoys anything I've said, I am a master of accents, dialects, etc. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, do anything, they should go to makingalivingshow.com and contact my voice agent, Roby Marion Francis Levy, which is his full name. And he will put you in touch with me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show and making me into your voiceover agent and sharing how you make a living.
Well, thank you. And I want to remind you that soon your child will be older and more of a problem.
Thanks. Subscribe to Making a Living Show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and pretty much anywhere else you get your podcasts. Follow along at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you like what you hear, please share the show with someone you know. Making a Living Show is produced by Next Exit Media and hosted by me, Roby Levy. Thanks for listening.